And this is episode 3 of season 1 of Belaboring the Point, the nerd stream. I got whiskey. Let's get it started. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Star Wars episodes 7, 8, and 9, and trying to get through them and reworking them, and what I think would have been a better way, a less beat by beat recreation of the original 3 episodes. Ideally, that is my hope. Now, I did talk about in episode 1, I did talk about listen to me umming and ahhing like a moron. I did talk about be quiet. Parts of episode 7 that I wanted to work on. And I think where I left off was with Finn in the Death Star, or in Starkiller Base. So, or on the ship, or I forget it. It's been too long since I've seen the movie. I'm not exactly sure where he was. So, my idea is that Finn is suffering from PTSD. He was part. So I cut out the fight at the very beginning of the movie, the battle where he ends up fighting the stormtrooper. Because I want to move that to a later on in the movie. Excuse me. More dead air, because this is what I'm good at. I wanted to look up the battle at the very beginning of the movie. I don't remember. I forget what the name of the planet they were on, but where they have the fight. Where Kylo Ren comes down and he kidnaps or captures Poe Dameron. So in my version, so what happens is that Poe is captured by Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren, and so let me recap real quick everything, the changes that I've made. So, so Rey is a wound in the Force, a Force child. She is the product of the light and the dark of the Force. I've toyed with this idea and I like it. So I'm gonna run with it. For me, I think the Force is inert. It's neither good nor bad. It just is. It has, much like any other kind of, it's just a power, like a gun or a bomb. It's neither good or bad. It's how you use it. And so maybe, but I've also toyed with the idea that the Force is both good and it has a light side and a dark side, and so I'm kind of using that idea that the Force gives birth to Rey, and then she's picked up by members of the the new Galactic Republic, or whatever I called it. I think it was a New Galactic Republic, and then the New Order, I think is what I called it. Yeah, or just the Order, something like that. I forget. It's been like 3 weeks since I did that stream, and I haven't had a chance to go back and watch it because I hate the sound of my own voice. So anyway, continuing on. What I was saying is that the herpty derp. So so the movie opens this tracking shot, and you see a light side and a dark side, basically. But it's not. It's never. It's always dusk. It's never dark, because the light always permeates the dark, and so that's the idea. There is that the light side and the dark side always cohabitate. That you need the light to have darkness, and you need darkness to have light. And so that the dark side of the planet is always in dusk. It's permanent dusk, and the light side of the planet is permanent daylight. So yeah, it makes sleep patterns weird. But so then she meets her parent, what becomes her parents. We have a training montage. We see her growing up and learning how to do things, and we actually get to meet this character and get to know her. We do a time jump, and we see it's about 10 years later, because that's not something that's unprecedented in Star Wars, having time jumps that kind of gloss over some things. So we see, so she's about 14 or 12, somewhere in there, maybe 8 to 10 years. And we see her as a little kid. We see her as a young kid, and then we see her being given to the Junker. And so that's when we really get to know this character. We get to meet this character. We get to learn about her and her backstory and her background. And we see her parents taking off, but she's not a little kid. She's actually more grown up, more mature. And so she has struggles with why her parents wouldn't just take her with her. And I thought, you can make them gay, or you make them, companions, whatever. Doesn't matter to me. If you want to get in that social justice-y kind of deal, kind of that representation for all, I'm okay with that. I don't hate it. I honestly think that's one way to do it. So, and then we meet, and then in the text scroll, we explains why Luke left, losing to the Knights of Ren. We established Kylo Ren, as a badass and a force to be reckoned with. We hinted at Supreme Leader Snoke, who he might be, which I haven't really nailed down that yet. I'm working on that. Hopefully we'll get into that here in a little bit. So then we have, so a lot of what we see in the beginning of the movie is just kind of a introduction. So we get to know this character. We can actually see her grow. And so she doesn't feel like she's just uber badass. She's actually a kid with abilities and talents. And we know that she's special because we saw the flash of light. We don't know that, we won't actually find out that she's a product of the Force until much later on in episode 9, or maybe late in episode 8, like maybe in the middle of episode 8 or in episode 9. We'll get back to that when we get back to that. So what you have is this idea of Rey dealing with the fact that she has abilities, she has powers, and we begin to see, because other characters in Star Wars have used their powers without knowing that they have powers. So she's able to manipulate things. She's able to win favors with people. And so she's not just a scavenger. She's the best scavenger. She finds all the best junk. She finds all the best trinkets. She gets all the best deals. She's 14, she's 15. And we see her at some kind of schooling or training. It's a one-room schoolhouse. There's 5 or 6 other kids in there. And then the Junker forces her to go and scavenge, and she ends up not being able to finish her training or finish her schooling. And so then when later on, so now going back to Poe and Finn, so we have Poe going down to the med droid, as I established a couple weeks ago. Poe goes down to the med bay to get checked out and see what's going, because he's talked to Phasma. Phasma's recommended him to go down and talk to the med droid, because a broken soldier is no better than a dead soldier. And so he goes down there to talk to her and talk to the med droid. Med droid gives him some pills or some scripts, and as he's walking back, that's when he hears Poe being tortured, and he has this conflict, and that's the catalyst for the conflict within him, is that he has, he's a soldier, he's a stormtrooper, but he doesn't want to be a stormtrooper. He can't stomach the idea of killing. And so he gets into his room, and you'll hear the screams of Poe and him and Kylo Ren going back and forth, and there's some dialogue there. And he's back in his room, and he's sitting on the edge of the bed, and he sees his stormtrooper armor, and he's in his jumpsuit or whatever, and he's sitting on the edge of the bed. And he closes his eyes, and you see him close his eyes, and there's this flashback, and it's the battle from the beginning, the battle where they end up fighting, and he doesn't. But in this battle, and he's taking part in the battle, right? And part of what and I may have already said this, and we may have had part of this flashback in the hallway. I don't remember. Again, I haven't watched it. It was like a 2-hour stream. I haven't watched it since then. So forgive me if I'm rehashing things that I've already hashed. So in that scene, in his mind, um, you see him having to deal with the fact that civilians are being killed. The First Order wholesale slaughters a whole bunch of civilians. And what happens is he wakes up in a cold sweat. And it's the next morning, and he goes to his duty station, and he's doing his duty. And his station here, his duty sergeant asks him if everything's okay. He's like, "You're awfully quiet today." It's like, "Oh, I'm just dealing with and I'm processing things." And he's like, "All right." And in that moment, he decides to leave. But he needs a pilot. He can't fly. And Poe Dameron, he realizes who they have prisoner. It's this Poe Dameron, and he goes and he helps him escape. And this is all the idea that he's a willing participant in this, basically in this crime and treason. He's a willing participant in this treason. And he understands that the penalty would be death, but he'd rather live on the run as a free man than be a slave to the New Order. And so they make their way out, and I really want to establish the conflict between him and Phasma, that he is not her equal, that he gets his ass handed to him by her, and they barely escape, and they end up crashing on Jakku. And the idea is I want to establish a relationship between him and her and Poe, really Rey, being the her in this sentence, I suppose I should say that, between Rey and Poe and Finn early on in the movie. And so what happens is that they end up at the Junkers, and they're looking for, they crash land, and I'm not going to separate them. I'm keeping them together because I think it was a silly mistake on Abrams' part to separate them. That didn't really have any rhyme or reason, in my opinion. I thought that was one of the big flaws of Force Awakens, is to keep these characters separated. So they meet with Chewbacca and Han, kind of a recreation. I know I said I didn't want to do a lot of the old story beats from Episode 4, but some things just work and they're great. So they're looking for passage, and Han Solo's gotten himself in a pickle again, because he always does. If trouble wasn't his middle name, it'd find him anyway. And so he and Chewie are drinking in a canteen again, and they're looking for another job. And they offer him money, or Finn. They meet with Han, and they find out about his strained relationship with Leia, because after Kylo turned to the dark side, it really tore up Han, and Leia's relationship fractured at that point, because Han thought he was gone. He's too far gone. We can't get him back. And Leia was like always optimistic and hopeful, and she never gave up on Kylo, or Ben, as it were. And so they go and they secure passage, and of course there's the Millennium Falcon, and you see, and they go up they go up inside it, and they take off, and Finn and Poe, sorry, excuse me, it's kind of late here, and I've been drinking, so my brain is kind of addled. So Ben and Finn, or Ben, fuck me, Poe and Finn are sitting by the sabacc table, and Rey is up in the cabin with Han, and she's asking him questions. She's learning about how the Falcon works, and she's learning how to fly. And so then, and so that makes sense that she would be inquisitive and curious and want to know more. And she's always trying to learn, and she's always trying to strive, and she's asking him questions. She's like, well, maybe, and of course, the Falcon is a rusty piece of junk because it's always been a rusty piece of junk, and it's even more rusty and junky now than it was 30 years ago. And so she's like, well, maybe this will work. And she holds up something, and Han looks at her and looks at it, and he goes, yeah, that'll work. And he puts it in there, and she gets to seem smart and charismatic and not come off as a Mary Sue, right? And then they're flying, and forgive me, it's been a long time since I've seen the movie, and I don't remember exactly what I said last time. So they're working on this. They're working on the Falcon, and they had to rendezvous with the New Galactic Republic, and yeah, the New Galactic Republic. I like that because it kind of ties into there's the old Republic, and then there was the whatever they called it. I forget what they were called in the movie, but I just like the New Google the Empire. They kept the galactic part because it's supposed to be for everyone. And so anyway, the major conflict in the movie is the attack on Starkiller Base, right? And so the idea is that my idea is that a that's all, folks. My idea is that because I don't really have that many problems with Force Awakens. There was things that, like I said, the things that I want to change, things that I want to move around, and the idea is that it's Rey, Han, Chewie, and Poe. Finn stays behind to help coordinate the attack because he's never been on Starkiller Base. He doesn't. I'm going to take that element of lying that he does out because I never liked that. I just didn't think it fit with his character. He doesn't know anything, and they're going in blind. They're hoping to find a weakness, so they go in undercover, and they go in disguise to try and figure out a way to stop Starkiller Base, right? And no silly having to jump in on the planet. They just come. They don't take the Falcon. They take another ship, a ship that won't be recognized by the Empire or the not Empire, the Galactic Order or the New Order, I should say, the New Order. They go and they and I know I've probably cut a lot of the movie out that I don't remember because it was okay, but it wasn't great and didn't really stick with me the way that 4, 5, and 6 did. Even 1, 2, and 3 stuck better. So the idea is that they end up in the forest, right? So everything goes down. They have this, and then Poe. They end up figuring out a way to overload the Starkiller Base. So there's no major battle at the end there's no major space battle in my version. And they find a way to overload it, and they just they plug some wires in, unplug some other wires, and they overload it, and it self-destructs basically. But while it's self-destructing, if you want to kill offhand, fine, cool, whatever, I'm okay with that. So we kill it. So Han and Chewie and Rey and Finn, or Poe, I'm sorry, Poe, all end up confronting Kylo Ren as the planet's coming apart. They cause core meltdown, and the planet's starting to break apart. And Finn, fuck me, goddamn, shit, Kylo murks Han, just absolutely, no remorse, no regret, just shoom, down comes the helmet, out comes the lightsaber, the look of shock on Han's face, he crumples to the ground. And I want to move it away from And Rey screams no, like Luke did in episode 5, and she ignites her lightsaber because she's had this lightsaber. She's been doing a little. We saw earlier in the movie, circling back around earlier in the movie, she's been training. She did a little bit of training with Leia, and so she knows some basic, and she does some basic blocks, and Kylo beats her. Right, he defeats her, and the planet, as he's going in for the killing blow, the ground shifts and the planet starts to break apart, and Chewie and Finn scoop her up, and Han's body. Chewie grabs Han's body, and Finn grabs Rey, and they make it. They get back on the shuttle and they take off and jump into hyperspace. And this is when we get to basically the end of the movie, and there'd be obviously fill it out, fill it up, put more stuff in it. But in the last 10 minutes, as this is all going on, Leia sends out a distress signal, and we don't know where exactly. She sends out this distress signal and says, it can be the "Help me, Obi-Wan, you're my only hope," whatever you want to make it, whatever this distress signal. And we see a shadowy figure, and instead of having it be in episode 8, have that be at the end of episode 7. We see a shadowy figure kneeling over an R2 unit, and the hologram comes on, and instead of it being Leia's message, have it be instead of having it be Leia's original message, have it be this new message for Skywalker. Help me, brother. You're our only hope. And the message cuts off. And so then we see the ship pop out of we see one ship pop out of Lightspeed, and we see it's the Poe ship. Poe and Rey and Chewie and what's left of Han. And it comes and touchdown, and everybody's cheering because they can see the explosion of Starkiller Base. Everyone's cheering, and then the door drops open, and Rey comes out, and she's dirty, and she's grimy, and she's bloody. And then Finn comes out, and he's dirty and bloody and grimy. And then Chewie comes out, and there's a bundle in his arms. And Leia comes running out to greet them, and, "Oh, great job, you did it, and then she stops. And she looks, and her mouth just drops. And then she drops to her knees, and Finn and Rey stop it, and Finn grabs her shoulder, and Rey walks up to her, and she's like, "I'm so sorry." And she's like, she looks up at her, and they lock eyes, and Leia, with tears streaming down her face, just stands up and doesn't say anything. And she locks Rey in a hug, and Rey pats her back, and you can see there's an exchange, and she wipes the tears from her face, and she walks up to Chewie. She's like, "Let me see him one last time." And so then the Chewie lifts the shroud, and we see Han's face one last time. And just about the time the movie's just about wrapped up, we see another X-Wing pop out. We see an X-Wing pop out, and it lands, and the canopy opens, and an old man climbs out, hits the release, and an R2 unit drops down. And the whole crowd is just stunned silence. And it's Luke, of course. And he walks over to Leia. And he's got a big smile on his face. And he's like, "I got your message. It's time for the last Jedi." to rise, or some cheesy shit like that. And then he sees her face, and his face drops, and he looks at Ray, he looks at Finn, or Poe. Sorry, I misspoke. I said Poe. I think I said Finn like 3 times, and I meant Poe. And he looks, and he turns, and he looks to Chewie, and he goes, "No." And he sees Chewie, and he sees Finn, or he sees Chewie, and he sees Han's face, and broken and twisted. And he looks at Leia, and he goes, "This is my fault." And she looks at him and goes, "No, Luke. He knew what he was doing. If anyone's to blame, it's Kylo Ren." And then the movie fades to black. And so we get to episode 8, and episode 8 is a total rewrite. Total rework, not even going to gloss over it. I'm pretty much not going to save anything. I'm going to totally scalp the script and start over from square one, because I've totally changed the end of the movie. Like episode 4 ended on an upbeat, so episode 7 should end on a downbeat. You have up, down, right? They rhyme. Up, episode 1 ends up, episode 2 ends down, episode 3 ends down. So the episode 4 rises, episode 5 falls, episode 6 rises. So episode 7 should end on a down, right? So you have up, down, up, down, up. So then the pattern repeats. It should be down, up. So, right? So if you're thinking about it that way, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So episode 8 will again end in defeat, right? But so we open up, and it's several months later, or several weeks later, whatever. Like we open up several weeks later, and they're the base is a bustle, right? And so so I'm gonna keep some ideas here, but I'm gonna change some of it too. So you engage. So the idea is, so they have the funeral for Han. Like they have a funeral for Han, and the idea is that the funeral. So we open on the funeral. So the first. So we have the funeral for Han, and then we fast forward a couple weeks, and everybody's kind of like, okay, we got to get back to work. The New Order isn't defeated, even though we stopped Starkiller Base. The New Order isn't defeated, and so we get to see them in the meeting room, and we get to meet Holdo for the first time. And she's in that same dress. She's got purple hair. The purple hair never bothered me. It was more of her outfit that always irritated me. You got that dress. Okay, you want to have a dress, that's fine, but it's got to be a uniform. It's got to be a military dress uniform, a military dress. So it's more form-fitting. It has patches. It has emblems, and we see that she's a fairly competent commander, and she's proposing this strike on a dreadnought factory, and the idea is that they're gonna so Poe and Finn are going to lead this attack, because in the several weeks or months since we last saw them, Poe has been working with Finn diligently to teach him how to fly. And Poe has gotten pretty good, so he's got his own attack squadron. He and Finn are going to lead this attack, right? So Poe and Finn are going to lead this attack, and the so they're setting up the plan, and so they're going to have 4 flights of the bombers, and see, this is why I wanted to use. See, I want to make it an in-atmosphere attack run, so it makes sense. You can have those World War II style bombers, but you have it on so they're attacking this facility, right? And all of their intel tells them that that there's no civilians, it's just workers. Mm. And so they get to the so they start their attack run, right? And they come in, and they think it's going to be they're no civilians are here. It's all droids. They think that their intel tells them that it's only droids that work on these ships, right? And so they prepare for their attack run, and then all of a sudden turbo lasers, just all these turbo lasers open up, and they break off, and they circle, and they say, this place wasn't supposed to be defended. Well, apparently it is. And you have a little bit of banter and some back and forth. And so what ends up happening is that they end up at the yeah, there we go. Ugh, my ears are itchy. They end up knocking out the turbo lasers, and they go in to make the run on the dreadnought, still under construction. And they drop their payload, and what ends up happening is hundreds of civilians get killed in this attack run. And then they get back to base. They're going through the debrief, and they have to confront the fact that war is hell, and it's not glamorous, and it's not something that should be celebrated. And they get to the point where they get back to base, and they're discussing with Holdo the next move, and they're talking to Leia, and they're discussing the next move. And and they're talking, and they're sorry, cut doesn't look too bad. Sorry, excuse me. So they get to the point. So they're going back and forth, and Leia does that. That I like that line of, you can't just blow everything up. You can't just jump in an X-wing and blow everything up. And so they get back to that. So next thing they know, there's alarms, and the New Order's fleet just drops out of hyperspace, kind of reminiscent of the Battle of Hoth, right? And Luke and Rey have to take an X-wing, and they go, and that's when they end up on the planet. That's how they end up on the planet that Luke was on at the beginning of the original beginning of 8. And I'm sorry, I messed up. I want to go back to just after Han's funeral. Yes, this is where I wanted to go. I totally forgot. So, after So Phasma ends up surviving the destruction of Starkiller Base, right? So they get to the, so we see Phasma 727, the 21st. So we see her, shit. Ugh. This is why I don't stream alone. And I shouldn't stream at 11 o'clock at night while drunk. Drinking. I'm not drunk yet. I'm just drinking. I ain't drunk. I just been drinking. So they see this. So this is my idea to create a more powerful character and to give her reason is what. Okay, so what happens? What happened was we see the 721st, the Acklys, led by Captain Phasma, absolutely devastating planet after planet after planet, just going in and wholesale killing everyone, civilians, military, not combatants, non-combatants, doesn't matter, men, women, children. She smokes them all, and so that's part of the catalyst for why they want to take out and they then and in on the Hollow Net, and so then we see this, and then it pulls back, and we see that we're watching a Hollow Net feed, and we hear, and that's when Holdo tells them about the idea of attacking the um dreadnought under construction. And so we fast forward the whole blah blah blah. So then we get back. So now back. Um, what we have here is that again. So I don't hate the idea of a space chase. That could be fun, right? But oh, one more quick thing: the hacker that there we go. Close that out. Hopefully that will stop some of the bandwidth being taken up. The hacker is code 8 because I don't remember his name. DJ. Okay. So we actually get to know DJ because he's with the new Galactic Republic. He's with the new Galactic Republic, and this is again changing things because I hated the idea of them having the ability to track through hyperspace. I thought it was stupid. I didn't like that from the jump. So my idea is that he's with them the whole time, and he's a double agent. They think he's on their side. He's the one that tells. So we have Holdo giving this whole address to the company commanders, basically. And what ends up happening is that she's telling him about DJ, giving them information, and it's a setup. And so then they do this attack. They do the attack on the dreadnought. Thank you. Sorry, I totally blanked on what I said. So they do the attack on the dreadnought, right? And they fly in and they attack the dreadnought, and they blow it all to hell. To fight the turbo lasers. And so what ends up happening is, of course, these civilians get killed, and the First Order spins it. They use it as propaganda. How can you trust these peace loving the new Galactic Republic is no better than the Galactic Empire kind of thing. 3,000 tyrants a mile away versus one tyrant 3,000 miles away. And so the idea is that the new order, they may not be the best guys, but they're better than what you're getting with them. And they have money, they have power, they have influence, and they bring systems that were part of the galactic the new galactic republic. God damn. I am ugh. Anyway, let's just get through this here real quick. And so we see Rey and Luke on Luke's planet in last Act 2. Act 2? So then we see that, so again, like I've already said, that Luke fought and lost to Kylo Ren 3 times. And so that's why he went into exile before the end of episode 7. So he comes back at the beginning of he comes back at the very end of episode 7. He gets to see that Han, we get to see him mourning Han. And at the beginning of episode 8, blah blah blah, yeah. So then they end up having to go. They end up going to Ahch-To to train Rey. Rey ends up on then Luke and Rey end up on Ahch-To, and he tells her about how he has defeated we get to see him actually losing to Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren, and we see this mysterious power, shadowy figure. Can't really make him out. He seems grotesque. And so we go, and in all honesty, I have not seen episode 9, so I really don't know how episode 9 goes or in the original script. So we're totally going off my ideas here. So they work together, they train together. Rey is making tremendous strides. She's becoming more powerful every day. And yet Luke can sense there's something different about her. And he's scrolling, she's doing some training with a robot. And she can feel something she wants to know more about. And Luke's kind of, yes, I know, it sounds like Supernatural. Forgive me. They end up talking to the so they do this so they end up having this technical decision, huh? So they have this training, and they're doing this training, and they're working on it, and they're going back and forth. And so then Luke reads something, and he's like, and he looks at Rey, and he looks back at it, and he goes, and he keeps reading, and he goes, interesting, or something very similar to that. And so then they have this thing, and Luke closes the scroll, and he's like, your training's finished. And she's like, what? I've just barely begun to train. It's like, your training is over. And she's like, train me. He's like, I will not train another Jedi. And she's like, but the Jedi are our only hope. Without the Jedi, the world is lost. And he goes, it's time for the Jedi to die. Or something along those lines, And he's like, and she's like, what? Why? He's like, you, my child, are the last Force sensitive. He's like, no, the Force is everyone and everything. And he goes, no, you are the last child of the Force. I said, child of the Force? What do you mean? My parents were junk dealers on Jakku. And he goes, are you sure? What were their names? And she goes, I don't remember. What did they look like? And she goes, I don't remember. What are you talking about? And he goes, Rey, you are the last child of the Force. And she's like, what? And he goes, the Force is in everyone and everything. But you are the Force. And she's like, I don't understand. You are a manifestation of the power of the Force, the light, the dark, everything. You wield its power with effort, with no effort. Effortlessly? whatever. Anyway. And she's like, but I don't understand. He's like, you will in time. And she's like, I don't. Luke, you have to train me. And he's like, I will not train another Jedi. It's time for the Jedi to die. And she's like, I don't understand. He's like, again, in time you will. And she pulls out her lightsaber and she ignites it. She's like, train me. And Luke ignites his lightsaber and he bats her lightsaber away effortlessly. He's like, you don't need training, Rey. You are the living force. It's like, I don't understand. What do you mean I'm the living force? This doesn't make any sense. And he's like, let go of your emotions. Let your mind go. Let the force be your guide. And she extinguishes her lightsaber and he extinguishes his. And she closes her eyes and she feels it. The light, the dark. Every drop of rain, every creature scurrying under the earth, every creature in the sky. And she begins to glow and illuminate with power, emanating from her very being. And then and just as quickly it goes away, and she goes, I am the force, the light, the dark. I see it all. I know it all. I am it all. And he says, finally, you understand. I cannot train you. And she bows and she's like, I understand, Master Luke. You have done me a great service. And it allows her to be humble and contrite, and so what we get there is a lot more meaning, a lot more depth, and those just that little exchange that where she begins to understand what she is and who she is. And so they have the scene. You have the scene where, so through all of that, we cut back. After all of that, we cut back to the New Galactic Republic fleeing the First Order. And they jump into hyperspace, and just about the time they think that they're free, they're safe, here comes the First Order. And the Holdo, Finn, Poe, Rey, fuck me. Finn, Poe, Leia, and Holdo are all standing on the bridge. And she's like, and Holdo and Finn goes, or Poe goes, every time we try to escape, they just keep following us. They just keep finding us. And they must be tracking us through light speed or something. And that's when we meet Rose Tico. I don't hate Rose. I think that the character is useful. And she's like, and she's a technician, like her big sister. And she's like, well, maybe I can look at the computer logs. And she's like, there's entries here to the New Order. And they're like, what? The New Order? How the hell? What the hell? Or what the heck or whatever. What the what? You know. So anyway, they go on. So they get to the. And I'm only doing another 10 minutes, guys. So thanks for watching. If you did, check out the replay. Tell me how stupid I am. I'd appreciate that. So they have this. So they go back and what ends up happening? See, what happened is that DJ, the hacker, again, I think I already said this. He's a double agent. Excuse me. He's working with he's been feeding the New Order information the New Order information this whole time. He's been giving them their location every time they make a jump. And so Rose and Finn, because Poe and Holdo and Leia, Rose and Finn and a handful of other troopers have to go and try and find DJ. And we'll get back to them in a minute. We'll come back to them next week or maybe in a week after that. Maybe in a couple weeks. We'll go back to that. And then this apparently is going to be a 3-part episode. Or a 3-part episode. Or 3 episodes. This is going to end up being 3 episodes. Or 3 parts. How fitting for a Star Wars saga. So what you end up having is that the Finn and Rose end up going after on a wild bantha chase, if you will, trying to find DJ. And they end up tracking him to the casino planet, which the name I don't remember because I just blocked it out. The casino planet. Is it Crate? I don't think so. If I could spell casino, it would help. Casino Planet Last Jedi. Cantobite. That's the name of it. So they end up tracking him to Cantobite, right? And they under the name of the Galactic Empire, Galactic Republic. Fuck. They go to arrest him for being a traitor, right? Well, turns out, shit luck. Cantobite has thrown in with the New Order. And so Cantobite is now so they go to arrest him and they get in this firefight. And again, it plays into Finn's PTSD. And he doesn't really want to be part of a battle, but he knows what he's got to do, right? I didn't realize Marciani was in the... I didn't know Joe Louis was part of the military. Anyway, so I keep bookmark that for next week. Or for Saturday actually. So part of what so they end up in this firefight, and Finn is having a hard time coping with the fact that he's in another freaking firefight. And this is when Rose says, instead of saying you don't what the fuck did she say that was so fucking stupid? No, that was... Yeah, that's not how we're gonna win. You don't win by killing what you hate, but by saving what you love. You know, excuse me. Sorry. Again, cutting this short. I'm not 100% tonight, obviously. So hopefully next week will be better, or a couple weeks. Next week I'm not really gonna have a show because I'm running my other shows running along. So we'll stop there. We'll call it there. We'll come back to this in a couple weeks and we'll finish up episode 8 and we'll work on episode 9. I hope you've enjoyed this little ranty bullshit stream that I did. I gotta thank the whiskey. I'd like to thank my mom, my dad. If you want to check out my non-nerd streams, if you're into sports, if you my other channel is just Adam Mangold. It's a sports only show. Saturdays from 10 to noon. Mornings 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. noon. Talking sports. It's the unscripted. It goes into all kinds of different sports. So This week's topics, I'm definitely going to bring up U.S. military boxers. Because I didn't realize Joe Louis was a boxer, boxed for the army or for the military. I'm assuming army, either army or navy. Um, so if you want to see more of me, if you can't get enough of me, obviously you can. Also, I am on every week with Bradley Walker on the Sports Nerd. Bradley Walker. It's my favorite show. I love doing that show. So come check me out there. Um, I don't know of any other housekeeping things that we need to do before we close this out because I'm running out of gas. If you have a topic that you'd like me to talk about, you'd like me to delve into, this is for nerd stuff. So D&D, movies, books, television shows. I may do a full recap on WandaVision at some point. Again, I don't hate everything. Like I said, and I don't mean to be so hard on The Last Jedi, but I just really there was a lot of things about that movie that I just did not like. Blech. I didn't hate it in the initial. I just didn't love it. I've grown. It's not so much a hate. It's a disdain. It's not. I don't hate the movie. I don't hate the actors that were in the movie. I hate some of the things some of the directions that they went. Like with again, I wanted to bring Captain Phasma back and give her more of a prominent role. I wanted to give her something to do other than just be somebody to get beaten up. So that was one of my big things. I don't know what else to say at this point. I'm just trying to fill out 4 minutes here. As I have another coughing fit because I'm not feeling 100%. So anything y'all want to talk about, anything that interests you in the nerd realms, hit me up. Thank you all for watching. I am just another nerd, Adam Mangold, signing out for tonight.